Investing in finance is something that I thought only white people do. I'm from Harlem, New York, and I grew up in the crack and heroin era. So I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s in Harlem. It was tough. When I paid my alimony, that was $2 million. Imagine what would have happened if I could have taken that $2 million, put it in the S&P 10 years ago. What do we have? The problem with Americans and American society is we want it now. We want what Jay-Z got, but nobody saw what Jay-Z did in the dark to get there. Nobody saw everybody going up to the radio station, begging for records, dealing with this, having to do this show, being awake 22 hours a day and then sleeping too. Nobody sees that. They just want the results. Fat Man Scoop, Minority Mindset, let's go!
Before we start today's podcast, I want to take a minute and acknowledge the unfortunate reality, which is that on August 23rd, 2024, Fat Man Scoop and I sat down to do this interview. About a week later, I got the unfortunate news that Isaac Freeman III, or Fat Man Scoop, had unfortunately passed away. It was a shock to me. It was a tragedy to everybody that knew him. But what you're going to hear through this podcast is the real mission that he was on, to change the world and make it a better place, not just through his music, but through spreading financial education and through helping people shift their mindsets to live their best lives. So I hope this podcast serves as a real memory of the mission that he was on to make the world a better place. And of course, I want to send my love, my thoughts, and my prayers to his family, his relatives, and everybody that knew him. And with that, here's the interview. Welcome back to the Minority Mindset Show. Today, we're talking about music. We're talking about how music is keeping some people broke, how this culture of hip hop that some people don't understand is keeping people financially poor. And to help me with that, I'm sitting down with the biggest hype man in the history of time. You've heard him in Missy Elliott's Lose Control. You've heard him in Mariah Carey's It's Like That. He's a Grammy Award winner. He's worked with some of the biggest names in hip hop, from Lil Jon to Sean Paul to Pitbull to Mariah Carey. I'm talking about none other than Fat Man Scoop. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here, and I hope that we have a great journey in terms of asking questions and answering questions that everybody wants to hear. For anybody who wants to know, this isn't even something he set up. I came here out of my own volition because I believe that it's so important that we learn financial literacy, and who better to learn it from than him.
Well, thank you, my man. I appreciate that. And I want to talk to you about that because you've been in this music, hip hop, party promoting space for a long time.
Long time.
What was that switch to make you go from, you know what, talking about if you got a $20 bill, put your hands up, to now get your financial literacy right? Because I heard you on your podcast talking to Ja Rule about financial freedom. Mm-hmm. I hear you on your radio show telling people to get your mindset right about money. What created the shift?
Okay, so it's a pretty long story, but it really starts with the pandemic. So myself, just like any other musician, multiple marriages, extreme debt, not keeping up with the Joneses, because I never was about keeping up with the Joneses, but more living my life on the terms that I wanted to. Kids, all that stuff creates a crap ton of debt. And the moment for me that changed everything was possibly the worst point in my life, but now in hindsight, the best part, which was the pandemic. So really? I'm a man that makes multiple five figures a month, high five figures a month. I went from, in 2019, making multiple five figures a month to March of 2020, zero.
Wow.
Okay? Now,
because you made your money from
being in the club.
Being in the club.
So I have a business that's predicated on people being together.
Yeah.
So when they say no one can be together, it's over. So I'm sitting in my house and I'm trying to figure this out. And one of my original plans was gonna be to become a truck driver. Because for me, I'm never afraid of ups and downs. I believe that everybody's going to have ups and downs, and you have to adjust to them. So my thing was, well, I was sitting in my house, and the only thing I could hear was the trucks going, and the air brakes and stuff. So I said, this is the only thing going right now. Maybe I'll just go learn how to drive a truck, get a truck, and just get on the road. At least I can generate some money. I'm never afraid to do anything to take care of my kids. Like, if you're afraid to do anything to take care of your kids, you're not a man. So if it's Fat Man Scoop on the mic, sanitation man, whatever, I have to do what I have to do. So I started doing that, went down the YouTube rabbit hole. And that took me to Earn Your Leisure. They are three young brothers. They do Market Mondays, Troy Rashad and Ian the Master Investor. Started watching that show, and they started to make me understand it. And, you know, I didn't know. I just ran into finance. So I said, let me take a look at it. These three young brothers doing this show. And it started to pique my interest. I was like, wow. Because for me, investing in finance is something that I thought only white people do. You know, in my mind, I always thought that we're just the people who sweep the floor while these white people run the world and do this and do that. And by the way, it wasn't as easy as it is now. Years ago, it really was that way. You had to have a broker. You had to be accredited. You know, so started with Earn Your Leisure, and Ian the Master Investor, who's a good friend of mine, he was helping me do stuff. He gave me a course. I read the course. I wrote like 30 pages of notes.
Wow.
And he was like, oh, you serious about this? I said, well, if you give me a course, how am I not going to respect you by not writing notes? So anyway, do that, move forward. He becomes really, really busy because they blow up. Now I'm on my own to try to find out the rest and figure it out, because now I got the basics. So like anybody should, you go down the YouTube rabbit hole and you start to find people. Yourself and a couple other people I found, and it started to, and then I read books. You know, of course, I read The Intelligent Investor.
Wow.
I read Money Master the Game. I read a good book from a young brother over on that side of the water in Canada called Daniel Plonk. Amazing book. Daniel Plonk wrote it. Go look it up on Amazon. It's amazing. And I just started reading 30, 40 books on investing.
Wow.
And eventually, Mandarin Chinese became French, and then it started to look like Portuguese, and now it's starting to look like Spanish. So I'm getting there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a baby to this, and now I'm actually, after 2 years or 3 years of studying, I'm finally in the deployment part of this journey.
My man.
So I was always trying to find people who could explain it easier.
Yeah.
And I actually came across you. And my first initial thing was, this Sikh dude, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Head wrap, what am I gonna learn from this? And then you started talking. And I just said, oh my God. And one video led to another, and another led to another, and another led to another, and another led to another, and then I was hooked on your content.
Wow.
Then I went and signed up for Market Briefs.
My man.
So, you know, now I'm looking at what's going on, you know, because I'm still traveling and doing my thing. So, you know, every third or fourth day I go read back to what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And the reason that I did that is because you made it so easy for people to understand. And I'm just going to say this to everybody watching. This man is without a doubt one of the best teachers of finance that I've ever come across. If you are out here and you're trying to figure this out and you're confused, go to his channel and watch every video from the beginning. Here's why. Because he takes things that are really, really complex ideas and makes it so simple for someone that has no sense or no understanding about what finance is to understand, that eventually it'll make you want to go get the rest of the answers. So
wow, thank you.
That's a fact.
It means so much to me.
That's a fact, man.
So, but I got to ask you, I mean, this switch started during the pandemic.
100%.
And I have worked in the music industry. A lot of my friends are artists. We were talking about this, I used to be in the party promotion industry. One of the things that kind of I realized is a lot of it, and maybe you can tell me, because you've seen it from a much, much, much bigger scale. a lot of things that you see in music videos, it's a show. It's something to kind of get people excited. But then when you look behind the scenes of what's really happening with the artists, how they're really living, it's a very different game.
100%.
And I think what that ends up doing now is people watch this and say, I want to live like that. I want to have the nice and expensive car. I want to have the nice and expensive jewelry. I want to fly around the world like this. I'll put it on my credit card.
Right.
And so is that something that you've seen?
100%. But I've seen it on both angles. I've seen it from both sides. I've seen it from the perspective of the artists, seeing my fellow artists, because if you want to look at it this way, I know every artist that is in hip hop since the year 1993.
Wow.
So from Jay-Z on down, like, for example, Jay-Z, I knew him from the beginning. Damon Dash is from my neighborhood. I showed them how to get their records played, on Hot 97, which was the beginning of that. So anybody going from those guys down, I know everybody. So that's that. I have watched it from people being a consumer and trying to keep up with the Joneses. And I've also watched it from being the person in the mix myself.
Right.
So those are three different angles. From the artist perspective, you make money. You don't make as much money as you should because depending on who you are, the way the contracts are situated, if you don't read your contract and you don't have somebody read it, you could be signing anything. You could be signing your life away. All right. I started in this business very young. I started with a guy named Teddy Riley, New Jack Swing. He was from my neighborhood, amazing producer. If y'all don't know about who Teddy Riley is, look it up. Then I was gonna go sign with Puff Daddy, P. Diddy at the time, to be the first Notorious B.I.G.
Wow.
Yeah, this is actual fact. Like, it's never been disputed or anything. He had that idea for Biggie before Biggie even came along.
Really?
So I was going to do that. That didn't work, and then I got into the music industry. So I've seen it from all different angles. Let's start with the artists. The artist is not making as much money as they should unless they're independent. There are some people like a guy named LaRussell and some other people who have figured out the way forward to sell records properly and sell merch, and they're not part of a system. They make way more money than the people in the system unless you're Drake. Unless you're like at the highest levels,
Right.
We know that, right?
Sure.
But with having a lot of money, you spend a lot of money
Oh, yeah.
because you're not financially literate. So we have no financial literacy. So some of these guys are making $100,000, $200,000 a show at this point, 30, 40, 50. But if you don't know where to deploy your money, you've already lost because you're destined to be poor at the end.
And a lot of these guys, from what I've seen, they're coming up from not a lot of money.
Not a lot of money.
And so now you bust your butt, you start making a lot of money.
Making a lot
when you
of
go
money.
from zero to $50,000 to $200,000 a show, and now you don't have much guidance on what to do with it. And what I've seen happen is either if you find a advisor, they're going to rip you off and screw you over, or you don't get that, and now you start buying the Rolls Royces, you start going on the private jets, and then you show it off, right? Because now Instagram has made it so much easier for people to show it off.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go down this route where, what if you stop singing?
Right. Or if you're in the legacy era of your career like I am, what if the shows are not there? So I'm very lucky. I work 46 to 48 weeks a year. Have been doing so for about 26 years.
Wow.
Because I have amazing relationships. I kill it when I go to the club, and I work hard. But every person in my thing is not like that. I come from a guy named Dougie Fresh, who's the world's greatest entertainer. So I always had a great stage show. So I'm lucky. And where I'm in the legacy era of my career, which means that my hits are over here, but even though I still work, the numbers is lower than it was back then, even though I still have a lot of work, but the expenses are the same. Penn State for my daughter, all this stuff like that. But I'm blessed because at least I know this now, and based upon the horizon, the time horizon of all of my mentors like DJ Cool, Dougie Fresh, DJ Hollywood, I've got another 25 years before I probably can quit. So if I do this now, I can still make it. So for me, I know this is off the road a little bit. My financial plan is my daughter's getting ready to get out of Penn State.
Wow,
So I have one more
congratulations.
semester. Thank you, brother. After that, 90% of my income minus expenses is going to investments. I also live extremely below my means. I moved from New York City to Ohio. I got a small house. I paid for it. The distance between my house and the next house that I live next to is 1 car length. One car width. So you could drive a car between the next house. But I paid for the house. It's mine. I have no expenses. My taxes are low. That now allows me to allocate my money towards investments that will pay me during a long time. Now, as long as I live, I wake up every day and I pray for more life and more health. As long as I live, if I put 10 years to this with what I make, I'm never working again. Even 5 probably. I'll never work again in my life.
I gotta highlight what you just said, because I don't think the value, the power of what you just said, I have to say that, because we're talking about Fat Man Scoop, the guy that's worked with the biggest artists
Everybody.
in the game. You've toured the world. You've made a lot of money. You're saying
When you say a lot of money, just so you can understand, when I paid my alimony, that was $2 million.
wow.
So
you
imagine what would have happened if I could have taken that $2 million, put it in the S&P for 10 years ago. What do we have?
But that's the crazy thing, is we got somebody who's made so much money. Now you're saying, I'm done with that lifestyle. I'm going to live in a smaller home. I'm going to buy this home, and I'm going to be so close to the neighbors. You're a celebrity, but you know what? Screw that. I'm going to live in this smaller home in Ohio. That way now you can put your money into the S&P 500 instead of the Rolls Royce, instead of the cars, instead of the jewelry. That is, I mean, and you said that this click happened during the pandemic.
It definitely happened during the pandemic. I've never been a person who wore jewelry. I always believed that my face and my voice was the jewelry. I never drove extremely expensive cars like Bentleys and stuff, because I always felt like that was an extortion magnet. So I would have 3 or 4 cars that would equal a Bentley. I never believed in having to impress people like that. However, I did like nice things, and I didn't know where to deploy my money. I had nobody to tell me. The internet wasn't the way it is now. Nobody was talking about it. So if you want to say maybe I was born 15 years earlier than I should have, but I'm here now, and that's what I want to. That's the thing that I want to put to people. It's never too late. Like, here I am, and I'm in my 50s. And I'm here to tell you, it's never too late. And everybody said, well, I don't have enough money, right? So I want everybody to think about it this way. You don't have enough money, right? I'm never going to get rich. All right, cool. So my $5,000, my 5 to 10 or whatever amount of money per month that I'm going to put in is your 500 to 600 or whatever you're going to put in where you are in your life, right? If that accrues, that becomes 1 million, right? If it accrues for me, it becomes 10 million, right? Or whatever the number is. But for you, at your level of life and where you are and your expenses, $1 million to change your life.
Oh, yeah.
Where I am, at my level and expenses, 10 million to change my life. The hardest thing to do is to get started. You're scared. I had to push myself past being scared. And what I did, and what I'm doing now is I'm just doing a little bit, just with little money, so I can get used to, I can have repetition.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting ready to start putting actual money in. But you got to take the first step. You can't get anywhere unless you take the first step.
I want to go back to, you were talking about you living in debt. What does that look like? What type of debt and how much debt are we talking?
Okay, so you're talking about alimony. So
you said $2 million.
Before I could buy a roll of toilet paper, I had to give my ex-wife anywhere between $13,000 and $15,000 a month, right? Okay, so you start there. Then you have a daughter in school. Then you have,
and you're paying for her school?
Paying for her school, because I believe the biggest gift that I could give her was for her to walk out of school with no student debt, because that's where they get you. The reason that I even became Fat Man Scoop on the level, I was on the radio. So I was on the radio in New York on Hot 97, legendary station. Only reason I became Fat Man Scoop is because I wanted to make money to put my brother through Hampton University. And making those records, because I grew up with Dougie Fresh, I knew how to make those records, and I got with the Crooklyn Clan, and that was it. And that's what took me off. And because I put him through school, God has blessed me with 30 years of one record, like of a huge record, right? So, you have Alimony, you have Taking Care of Kids, you have all the other ridiculous expenses that you have, like your car, your house, your apartment, or your house, or whatever the case may be. And then you spend frivolously. You do, because we're a consumer-based economy. Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. I never wore jewelry and stuff, but I might want these shoes. I might want this. I might want that. And that's what keeps us in a hole. And I was in a very deep hole on top of taxes. So when you get divorced, you got to deal with your wife. You got to take care of yourself. You got to deal with the tax man. So a lot of people who get divorced, they go into debt because sometimes you can't handle all three. So there's three kinds of levels of divorce. Tiger Woods, man, here, take this $38 million and get out my face. Then Fat Man Scoop, where you make a lot of money, but when you got to pay this and this, you're going to drop something. Then you got Pookie in apartment 5B that makes $30,000 or whatever. You finished. So, debt is a very serious thing. And if you don't think about how to lower your debt and lower your expenses, what you can do, you're going to always be in the grasp of the person who's the lender. Because as we both know, time is money. You're loaning your time for money. And if you continue to accrue debt, you'll never get out. And again, I know this might be going over other people's heads, and I know you teach us a lot about inflation and all of those things that eat away at your money. If you don't invest, you're never going to beat inflation, or you're not even going to have the chance to beat inflation. Your money is going down every single day.
Right.
So, these are the things that people need to know. And listen, I'm not Jay-Z, but I'm not some clown either. So I'm somewhere in the middle here, and if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And if I can fight my way out of it, then whoever's watching this can fight their way out of it.
What you're saying is powerful, because what a lot of people assume is if I'm making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, man, if I just made $200,000 a year, all my money problems are solved.
Nope.
Now, what you're saying is that's not true at all.
That's not true, because here's the thing: if you have no financial literacy, then as your expenses go up, you're going to spend more. So for me, at the end of the pandemic, I'm sitting there, and I'm saying to myself, I'm looking at myself, and I'm saying to myself, I'm coming out the pandemic. Let me show these dudes what it's about. Let me go get the 750. Let me go get my 750 back. Let me go get my Range Rover back. Let me go cop another. Let me get a little so-and-so. Let me show them I'm back on the street, right? And then something said to me.
And you're living in New York at the time.
I'm living in New Jersey, because everybody that make money that's from New York, you always move to New Jersey. That's just like moving in suburbs, right? So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, let me show them what this is. But then a voice came to me and said, don't do that. Go in the other direction.
Really?
And it was just a calm voice. I don't know where it came from, but it came in my mind and said, don't do that. Be smart this time. Go in the other direction. And that's when I decided to move to Ohio and change my entire life. For me, that's another thing. You can't be concerned about what other people do. You got to run your own race for yourself. So I never was really concerned about impressing people. I don't care about that stuff. I'll be the first to tell anybody on here. Right now, I drive a 2012 Jeep Wrangler from my divorce. It's the car I had to buy after my divorce because I had to lower my expenses because I had to pay that $16,000.
Wow.
If I meet a woman today and she can't get in that Jeep Wrangler, then she can't rock with me. She's not for me. Because here's the thing, I'm going back. Just water rises to its level. I'm going back to the mansion.
But you got to say this.
But if you can't rock with me with that Wrangler, it's a wrap.
How much money are you making right now?
A very decent amount.
A very decent amount of money.
As they say, I'm a high value man.
So
I make more than 6 figures a year I do very well in my business.
I know that. I'm saying this just for context because I want people listening and to hear this because I've said similar things and people think that I'm crazy and no one thinks like this. Here you are a celebrity. People know who you are. Your name, you're on the radio. Your voice is played in every club
100%.
across the country, across the world.
Across the world, man.
Every day.
Every day.
People know who you are. You're making a lot of money. And here you are driving a 2012 car.
Yeah.
Living in Ohio in a smaller home.
Yeah.
You want to keep your expenses smaller. That way you can put your money into the markets. That way
and
you can
investments.
build investments.
Yeah.
That way you can build this freedom, not just the income, because before it was the grind to make the money. Get more shows, get more contracts, make more money so that way you can have more spending money.
100%.
And now it's a very different game. It's I want to make the money, spend less money, and make myself rich.
100%. Because here's the thing. Again, we're going to go back to, I'm not here to impress anybody. You either like me or you don't. And I've never been a person in my life to say, oh, I make this type of money. If people knew what I do, they'd be like, I can't believe that some guy that says put your hands up does that. But I'm not one of those. One of my things in life is I'm a very humble person, and I don't believe money makes you or breaks you. It just makes you more of whatever you
100%.
are. Right? So for me, saying how much money I make doesn't define anything. I will say I make a very I'm in the 5 to 1% of people that make money.
I know you do well.
Again, people. I do well. But I had to learn.
Yeah.
Because again, what we were saying earlier, water always rises to the level it's supposed to be at. I went through a divorce. I went through 10 years of really, really hard times. But because I am who I am, I'm gonna be in a mansion again. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna be in the mansion again no matter what, because this is what I do.
Yeah.
But now, when I get in that mansion, when I put my foot in that mansion, when I put my foot on the pedal of that Range Rover, something else is gonna be paying for it.
Heck yeah.
Okay, not me. There's not going to be expenditures on my part to buy that Range Rover. It's going to come from an asset that has accrued or continues to cash flow, so that this works. And that's a combination of you. That's a combination of everything that I've read, everything that I've seen, all the information I've ingested. You have to have a mindset change. You have to say to yourself, am I willing to accept the pain of a certain amount of years to get here? The problem with Americans and American society is we want it now. We want what Jay-Z got, but nobody saw what Jay-Z did in the dark to get there. Nobody saw the wars. Nobody saw everybody going up to the radio station, begging for records, dealing with this, having to do this show, being awake 22 hours a day and then sleeping too. Nobody sees that. They just want the results.
Yeah.
And that's what we're hooked on to. We're not hooked on to the work. It takes work to get to where Jay-Z is. It takes work to get to where you are. It takes work to get to where I've become, where I've got to. There's a difference.
You know, it's funny because what people say is, man, what Scoop does is so easy. All he does is get on a mic and yell a few things.
If it was so easy, how come everybody not doing it?
Jay-Z doesn't do much work. All he does is just say a few things on the mic.
If it's so easy, how come you can't do it? So I'll dig into that too. No disrespect to anybody who works at fast food places. If you work at a fast food place, instead of being angry about that, why don't you sit in there, do your job, learn the systems, become a manager, and at some point get some financing to get your own franchises. But there's a price that a man who flips burgers makes. And then there's a price that Jared Goff from the Detroit Lions gets. Here is why this price is higher for everyone who wants to understand. They have a specific skill that not many people in the world can do, and they have a level of excellence at that, and the reality is everyone cannot do it, because if you could, you would. The man down here who does this, there are many people that you can fill into this position to do this. It is not as hard as this, and because of that, that is where the pay gap, where the reflection in the pay gap is. It's very simple.
I love that. Is this a mindset that you had as a kid?
Yeah, that part of it, yes, definitely.
Because I got to understand, because you said, I don't care what people think of me. I'm going to do what I do no matter what people say. and this mindset, I'm going to do because what you said in the beginning of our talk was, man, if I got to go be a janitor, be a sanitation person, if I got to drive a truck, I would do it.
I don't care what it is. To take care of my
what
family.
gave you that mindset? Because a lot of people don't have that.
Well, I think it comes from my grandfather and my grandmother. I come from a grandfather who was very, very well-to-do, and he was the man in his area in Lawrenceville, Virginia. He had many businesses, so I think I come from that stock. I'm also a man's man and a leader of other people and myself. And to be a leader, you must be able to stand on your own. You can't run with the flock. You know, so many people say, oh, I give you a great example. No disrespect. I don't like Balenciaga. I think the shoes look like clown shoes. But because they're $700, $800, people wear them.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing that because I don't like how it looks. So if I was a follower, I would just wear that and wear tight jeans because that's what everybody does. Nah, I'm my own man. I stand on my own too. And I think that from my family, from my grandfather and grandmother specifically, I got a lot of that.
And so they grew up in Virginia. How did you grow up? What was your childhood like?
My childhood was I'm from Harlem, New York, and I grew up in the crack and heroin era. So I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s in Harlem. It was tough. If y'all think you want to see how crazy it is, Google Fort Apache, the Bronx. Back then, it was like Detroit in the 1980s. It was like a wasteland, man. It was like abandoned buildings, craziness. But I always knew what I wanted to do. And I always knew from my parents and my grandparents that it took work to get there. I never expected a handout. I never expected anything, you know, for anyone to give me anything. I said, if it's gonna happen, I have to do it on my own. And I didn't make myself a victim. And I was lucky enough at maybe about 21 to read a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And it basically gave me all the tenets that I believed in anyway in my life, and I just executed on them. I come from being a garbage man basically in Mount Sinai Hospital.
Wow.
So, I mean, you know, in the hospital there was a big chute where they would throw laundry down. And if you were in the ER, if you were in the you know, having a baby, cancer area, whatever linen it is, they throw it down. That's bloody, that's this, that's feces, urine, whatever, and it will all come down into this thing. And I had a job where I had to take that stuff and put it in the bin and send it off to the laundry.
Wow.
And I was having my ex-wife, my first wife, Dana, told me that she was pregnant and I was having a baby. And I looked at myself and I looked in this thing and I said, how am I gonna take care of my child doing this? And I never forget, they kept writing me up on the job because they were like, you're not moving too fast. And I never forget, I was in that room crying, sitting on a chair, and I had the idea to be an intern. And I said, I'm gonna go be an intern. And I went and I executed that. I remember my ex-wife's brothers, they looked at me like I was crazy when I said I was going to be an intern and I was going to do this and that. They said, get out of here, whatever. This, what you going to do for my daughter, my sister? How you going to take care of her? And I told them the plan. They laughed at me. But I always knew what I was going to do. And more importantly, I put the work into that. So I didn't just say I'm going to be an intern. I got up every day. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I got dressed, I went to the job. I worked from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. I took my lunch break, took a shower, went down to the record label, worked at the record label to 11, went back home to the Bronx and did it all over again for a year and a half. And that's how I got in the music industry, and that led me to where I am now. That took work.
How old were you during this time?
21 maybe.
21.
21.
Then when did you have that itch that I'm going to go and I'm going to get on a mic? How old were you when that?
7 years old.
You were 7.
It was at the advent of hip hop. So it was at, you know, this is at the beginning of hip hop, like, you know, Kool Herc days. I must have been like 7 or 8 in 19. Hip hop started like 71. I might have been like 7 or 8 in 77 or something like that. And my cousin Alan, AJ, Alan Jackson, he was a DJ with his best friend Chip. And as a kid, they would let me sit up there and they would be doing the records. And I never forget, I grabbed a comb and I was acting like I was rapping. And from there I was stuck. And then like I just didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I was putting in work. And then I went from there to starting to write rhymes. And then from there to writing rhymes with my friends. And then we would go around to all the little places in the neighborhood and perform and stuff like that. And that led to that, and then that led to this. And by the time that I had an idea for this internship, I got into the music industry. Then from the music industry, I got into a record label. You know, I got into the record label, and then from the record label, I was working so hard promoting the records to, I know every DJ here in Detroit from working those records back in the days. From that to having to make a record. Wow. To put my brother through school, because remember, I was a rapper back in the days,
yes.
And I knew how to do crowd participation. So I made a record, and because I knew all these guys in here in Detroit and all over the country, I was able to make those records a hit, and that's how it all happened.
Wow. And how old were you when you felt like it really started to take off?
I was maybe 27, 28.
Wow.
And I had my first record was a record called Hands Up. Hands up, now put your hands up. What? Hands up, now put your hands up. That was all Busta Rhymes, put your hands where my eyes can see. And when I did that record, it flew. It started kicking ass. And because I knew all of the DJs across the nation. And I knew it was something. When I knew that I had really made it was probably when I did the BET Awards with Missy Elliott. And I distinctly remember I was all the way at the top. Missy had me at the top, and I had to walk down this thing to come on the stage. And Will Smith was down there, and he was like, the producer said, 20 seconds, and I was looking down at Will. They were like, 20 seconds, Will, and I was looking down, and I did not have any saliva in my mouth. My mouth was completely dry.
Yeah.
And it was because I said to myself, there are 80 million people watching this. That means my mother is watching this. My ex-girlfriend from being a kid is watching this. My teachers in school are watching this, everything. And at that point, I said, I made it. I actually made it. Like, and then when I took off my shirt at the BET Awards, I saw Michael Jordan go, holy shit. When I saw him point like that, I said, I'm here.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, Michael Jordan. Like I was like, I'm here.
Wow. So now you're 27, 28. Michael Jordan's pointing at you.
Yep.
The whole world is looking at you. Your teachers are looking at you. They
Yep.
some of them probably thought you're never going to amount to much.
Right. Yeah.
And now here you are on stage in front of one of the biggest platforms in the world. Mm-hmm. What do you do next?
Fly back to New York and continue doing what I'm doing. I don't know any better. So, you know, if I knew what I knew today, I would create some type of product out of it. I would do some type of coaching, whatever I would do, but I didn't know any better. Because again, we don't have what we have now. And what's the traditional formula of an artist, a rapper, an athlete? Spend your money and don't invest. There's only a few, like Chad Ochocinco and a couple other people that really were on the right track. But the average person that's coming from the hood, that doesn't understand financial literacy, what they're going to do? They're going to go spend money and buy chains and do all. I didn't know anything else to do. Mm-hmm. So what did I do? I continued to do what I do. You know, live a nice life for myself, make sure my kids were okay. They were in Jersey. You know, now I got the big house, the mansion on the hill, all that stuff. But I have all of that. My output per month on the house and expenses and taking care of wife and all that is somewhere around 25, 28,000. But that's all going out. It's not coming in.
So if hypothetically you made 30 grand in a month, how much would you spend out of that 30 grand?
I made more than 30 grand in a month at that time, so I would spend. I made more than 30, but I know the house and taking care of everybody was about 28, easy. Wow. And then other various nonsense that you buying, I might have, you know, a spread of this much, but guess what? I spent all of that too. I didn't put. Because you don't know anything. So it was all spent. Whatever I made, it was all spent.
Wow. And I think that's where now your education is like, look, I made all this money. That money is gone.
It's gone.
Now you're working to make money, and now you want to keep it.
I want to keep
And the
it.
way you want to keep it, which I love, is you don't want to just keep it in the bank. Is you want to now. You're talking about investing in stocks. You're talking about you want to invest in real estate. You want to build businesses. Like you want to build products. Like because not many people did what Dr. Dre did. You know, you built a business that you can sell, or what Jay-Z did, and now they've built these empires that don't rely on them just constantly getting on the mic. They have a business behind them.
Right, but that comes with a couple of different things. It comes with who you're around. It comes with who you're in network with. So you have to understand, and it took me a long time to understand two concepts, which I'm starting to employ now. I was always a lone wolf. I was always my own man, and I did everything. I was the secretary, the booking agent at one point. You know, I have a booking agent now, I do all that stuff, but I was always, even to this day, I still do a lot of stuff myself. I'm starting to understand that a team is necessary.
Yeah.
If you want to go somewhere, you want to go fast, you run by yourself. But if you want to go far, you go with a team. So I'm learning to put people together and learning to trust and delegate, which is really hard. And I know that's hard for you because you have a company. I also learned that you are the average of the 5 people you're around. So for me, I'm trying to get into discussions, into circles with people who know more than me.
Okay.
Because if not, I only know what I know. I need people that are smarter than me that can tell me, hey man, this, and this. So if you look at Jay-Z, right? There are two, and I know Jay-Z well, like, you know, I know him well. There are 2 pivotal points where Jay-Z went from the guy with the do-rag to who you see today. One, Matthew Knowles, Beyonce's father. Seen a noticeable change when that happened. That was the beginning of when everybody went from the jerseys to the button-ups, right? Even though they were large button-ups, oversized button-ups, still button-up. The next thing that I saw everything change is when Jay-Z did that interview with Warren Buffett on Forbes. Go look at the suit he was wearing.
Yeah.
Go look at the suit he was wearing and the suits he wear now. When he got in that room with Warren Buffett, everything went in a different direction because the people it was a interview with Warren Buffett himself and somebody else. When that happened, because somebody came to him and said, hey, you could do this, this. Are you deploying your money this way? You know, you need to do this. And that's when it went shoo.
You know, they say there's levels to this game.
There's levels to this game, man.
And I
Meek
think
Mill said it.
that's where people realize, you know, you can make a lot of money as an artist, but you can make a lot of money, even way more money as an investor.
And as an investor, and that's another thing. As a child, I read, as not a child, but in my late teens, early 20s, I read Robert Kiyosaki. And I started to, this is all stuff that I'm learning, you know, I'm applying now, but I understood the quadrants. Like when you're self-employed, you know, like I am, I got to go to Nice, France to do that show. So last week I was in Nice, France. I had to fly to Nice, France to do it. The week before I was in London. I got to fly to London to do that. The week before 3 weeks before I was in Bali. I got to fly there. When you're an investor, you don't have to do that. Your money is putting you in a situation where, based on the investment you make, it's working for you and you're sitting. So that's my goal. My goal is to sit in a seat like this and the numbers coming in. That's when you're really winning.
But for somebody now who's listening to this and they're growing up in a not so good circumstance, you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of resources, you're saying that you're going to be the average of the 5 people that are around you. So if you're growing up in an environment that is not good, how do you get that environment, especially if you're growing up in a bad neighborhood with not so good people around you, bad influences? How do you break out of that? What do you need?
First of all, it starts with yourself. Okay? It starts with the decisions you make. Again, I grew up in crack era Harlem, heroin era Harlem. I grew up in the worst. For perspective, I grew up in the era in the same neighborhood. If anybody knows the movie Paid in Full, I grew up in that neighborhood. The guys they talking about, I knew those guys.
Wow.
I was a younger kid, but I knew them. Like all the guys, like Alpo and all that stuff. That is the story of my actual neighborhood, right? So it was bad. But I was always the kid who said, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. And I went and did it. And everybody that I was around was on that mission.
Wow.
So what happened? The 5 people I was around, we all did music, but it was the same concept. One of them became a grandmaster and world champion DJ. His name was Rock Raider. He passed away. God bless him. The other one, one of my best friends, Sean C., he became an A&R at Loud Records. He was the A&R behind Big Pun, Mobb Deep, Wu-Tang, Dead Prez. He did part of Raekwon. He did a bunch of different things. I became who I was. My other DJ was a world champion DJ. And then there's the people who are around me that my mother cultivated. They became famous too. My brother, I put him through school. He came out. He was a hype man for me for 4 or 5 years, going on the road with me. One day he said, I'm going to be my own man. He got up. He went and did the work and did an internship. He wound up at Def Jam Records with another guy named Steve Carlos. They had an amazing promotion team. One day, Young Jeezy goes to Steve Carlos and says, can you run my label, CTE, which was Corporate Thugs, which was Young Jeezy? And another guy named Rick Ross came to my brother and said, can you be the president of my label, Maybach Music? And my brother was the president of Maybach Music. He worked himself there. Then he left there. He wound up, he got a couple of artists. Now he's got an artist named Lola Brooke. So he's killing it with that. He's got another new artist with named Skylar. She did a record with Chris Brown. That record is number 6 in the country right now, and he has a deal at Arista Records where he's the senior VP. 5 people you around. For us, it was music. So the one thing that I ask people to do is, don't matter where you live, go get with the people who want to do what you want to do. Go get with the people who wanna be where you wanna be. If you out there, you struggling and you wanna learn investing, go find out where in your area people are investing. There are a bunch of places where people have investment groups where they teach kids stuff. Go there. You can't put it on. Listen, we all go through bad things. Now, some of them are worse than others, but you can't put it on that. That's what people call the quote-unquote victim Olympics. Nah, bro, you got to get out here and do the work if you want to win. Nothing's going to be handed to you. You have to go get it.
Wow. And I think that mindset, and this is something you said you were born with because of your grandfather. That's that mindset that I think is missing with a lot of people, whether young, middle-aged, old people, that mindset that you have the control. And you have the power and you have the decision to go out and make that change, because that can ultimately, but what a lot of people I think don't realize is you expect it to be this linear thing, that if you start going to these right people and you start making these changes, that you're going to see this straight path to success. But it's this crazy, because you're going to meet this person here, who's going to connect you to this person here, that's going to take you to this thing here, and then you're going to feel like you didn't go anywhere. But then you end up learning this thing that teaches you this thing that connects you to this person. Now all of a sudden you're 14 steps forward, where you didn't even realize how all these weird things, like when I talk about when I used to be in the entertainment business, I had no idea that I would end up here making YouTube videos. I had no idea that I would start a financial media company. But learning how to talk to club owners, learning how to talk to artists,
It's going to always put you where you need to be.
it teaches you skills that you don't know that you could use.
You're going to use. Great example. I was an intern at a record label. I went to do record promotion. Record promotion is when you convince radio stations, the DJs at the radio station, to play the record. Record promotion led me, because I worked so hard at promoting records, because I was up at the radio station, and wound up getting me a job at Hot 97. Hot 97 put me in the place to be where I was, so that when my brother needed to go to Hampton University, I had the smart idea of, let me make a record. I'm a record promoter. I know all the record people. I know all the radio people. Let me do it. I took my record. I said, hey, Kendall's going to school, man. I'm trying to put my brother Kendall through Hampton University. Oh, Kendall, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's your little brother. Yo, man, send me the record. Oh, this record's hot too. We play it. I went from making $500 a show. I said, if I could make $500 a show, and I could do 100 shows, I could put them through university first year. Boom, out of the door. And then 30 years later, to 29 years later, we here. Everything leads you, success is never linear. There are always bumps and bruises and travels in there. You're never gonna be successful at anything unless you go through some bumps at it. You gotta fail to even get to the point to win.
And what makes you want to take care of your family like that, your brother?
Well, for me, I was 11 years older than my brother. So, and my dad was an alcoholic. Even though at the last 15 years of his life, he got sober. So it became great, right? But I always was in a leadership position with my brother. So when I was 11, he was 1. So when he was 7, I was 18 or something, whatever it was, right? But I always had a relationship with my brother that was more parental than brother to brother peer. And I grew up, my mother was amazing. My mother was like an amazing woman, like the best of the best. So I always grew up with certain values. And I always knew that a man takes care of his family, regardless. It's not about what you want to do, it's about what you have to do. There's a difference. And with that mindset as a young man all the way through, it was always natural for me to take care of my family. To this day, like, what man doesn't take care of his family? What man walks away from his responsibilities? 100%. Whether you like it or not, you made the mistake.
Right.
You impregnated that woman. You did that. So how you gonna walk away from that? So that's always been my mentality. Whether it's a mistake or something that I did right, I have to have ownership of that and deal with the consequences. And that's why I was always like that.
Wow. I mean, it just shows the teachings you got from your mom, what you learned from your father, what you learned from your grandparents, what you learned from going through struggles, what you learned from putting in the work. Because one thing that I think cured a lot of tough times was working hard.
Working hard.
And that's something that anybody can do. And I know, I forget the first time who I heard this from, but if you don't grow up with money, if you don't grow up with people teaching you, having mentors, the one thing that you can control is the amount of effort that you put in.
And what you can put in.
And that can cure a lot of problems.
And look, there are days where I'm hurting. There are days where it ain't always.
I've got to imagine you're in the club. I mean, that's not easy. That's it's physical.
But even just with, there are days I lose. There are days that it don't work. There are days that there's failures. There are records that I put out that are garbage, that it don't work. So what do? Stop? I got to keep going. You got to keep swinging until you hit a home run. That's just how it works.
And I got to ask you about that, because the difficult part of being in the public eye is there's going to be some people that love you. There's going to be some people that hate you. And then when you put out you could put out 10 great albums. People will love you. But if you put out one bad one, the hate starts coming. People will start talking all this crap. How do you now deal with that? Because I think that's another tough mindset part that people don't understand, because people are going to tell you that Fat Man Scoop is a fake, Fat Man Scoop is done, he's old. Like, how do you deal with that?
Knock yourself out. Here's what I say. And this is, I know he's going through a lot of problems right now, but P. Diddy was the person who actually got me into the music business. Like, he led me towards doing internship and everything. And I have, whatever's going on with him, he'll have his day in court, whatever it is. Blessings to everybody, right? I learned a couple of different concepts from him. Number one, if you don't have haters, you're not doing your thing.
I love that.
If you don't have people who hate on you,
Yeah.
you're not doing your thing. Because that means you're not even pushing the needle. So there are people who say, Fat Man Scoop is just yelling, he's over, he's done, whatever. God bless you, right? That's the first thing. Number two is, haters are actually the best people you can have.
Really?
You know why? Because haters give you feedback that will make you better. I'll give you a great example. There was a guy years ago that was hating on me. He was like, oh, Fat Man Scoop, when he performed, he talked too much. He stops to talk too much. All he do is talk and he play his records and this. So what I said to myself, Let me look at that and reverse engineer that. Okay, that's right. I went and I changed my show to one 15-minute continuous roll of hits, and I never stopped. Kept the action going. It actually was the best thing for me.
Wow.
So you can't look at haters as people who hate. You gotta take what they say and say, is it valid? Can I repair? Can I fix what they're talking about? And then move forward from there. Number 3, haters. You rarely hear people hate on you that are higher than you. It always
100%.
comes from down here, right? Great example. When you go to a football game, do you see the people on the field hating on each other? No, because they know how hard it is.
Yeah.
The only people who hating is up in the seats. People who don't even do this. They don't even do it. You hear somebody, LeBron booing Steph Curry, boo. They may fight because they're warriors.
Yeah.
But you never hear them hating on each other. And if they're hating, they talk about your skills. They talk about stuff, I'm better than you. I'm this. Your skills are garbage. You never hear warriors hating and arguing on each other. You only hear it from the spectators. So for me, I don't get mad at that because 9 times out of 10, you are typing that from your computer in a dirty ass house. So why I'm going to get upset with you? God bless you. In Jesus' name, do what you want to do.
You know, I feel like you got a new industry under your belt, the Fat Man Scoop motivational show.
I'm working on that. Actually, I'm working on that. I'm working on doing motivational speaking because a lot of people have said that to me. Yeah, so I you know.
I mean, you got me excited.
Thank
I got goosebumps coming. I'm like, man, what are we doing? We got to get to work.
Thank you. Like, and listen, I talk to myself like that.
Yeah.
And even I, like, you remember when we were saying bad days or no motivation?
Yeah.
Even I go through that. So there was a time, not even too long ago, where I was like, man, I'm Fat Man Scoop. I could just chill out and just ride the wave and just keep booking shows. But then I realized that you have to work every day. You can't work some of the time. You got to work every day.
Oh, yeah.
So even right now, I try to put out, I just started like maybe about 6 months ago, and now I'm starting to refine it. I put out a remix every week.
Wow.
Even if I just get on there and say some, whatever the first thing in my boom, 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 and I mix it, put it out, put the artwork up, boom, get it out there. Because the more shots you take at the hoop, you're gonna score. Mm-hmm. And no matter what, you could like it, you could hate it, but you're gonna know I'm active. You're gonna know I'm active. Somehow it's gonna come to you. If I keep working, you're gonna know I'm active. And I learned that by it happening 3 or 4 years ago. I did something, I don't know what it was. I did a remix of Beyonce's Before I Let You Go. And I put it out, right? Nobody said nothing, but it did well, right? Just in the streets. I get a call from Timberland. Timberland's like, yo, man, I saw that Beyonce video. So, yo, listen, can you come to Essence Music Festival and do so-and-so with me? Because Teddy Riley's doing a so-and-so and so-and-so. Can you come and be a part of that? That would have never happened if I didn't have if I didn't put myself out there for the awareness to be that I'm alive. Whatever you do in your business or your work or whatever, you got to do content. You got to keep working. Because if you don't work, no one actually knows you're active. No one's going to book you. No one's going to buy from you. Nobody's going to do anything if they don't know what you actually do.
And, you know, when you talk about creating content, one of the cool things about that I think a lot of people overlook,
I hate it.
it's tough. But if you put out a video and it gets 50 views, that's still 50 people. Mm-hmm. You don't know who those 50 people are, but why do you hate it?
I hate it because I come from an era where doing all this stuff is snitching. Who needs to know I'm in Detroit? Who needs to know what I ate this morning? Who needs to know where I'm moving around? Like, from where I'm from, that stuff gets you killed. But I understand it's today's world and it's hard. So again, team. I'm starting to employ people to stay on my back. I'm starting to employ people to do certain things to make it. I'm employing people who are going to edit it and push it off and get it out from there for me so I don't have to do it. I'm finally learning do what you're strong at and let other people who are good at what they do what they do.
But I also like when you met with Gary Vee, you did a podcast.
That's right. Yeah, that's my brother. Shout out to Gary Vee.
One of the things that he was talking about that you guys were saying was when you create content, you get to decide what you want to publish, how much you want to put out there about your life. Because I agree with you. You know, it's a little weird when you start getting into the personal stuff, which I don't share.
Yeah.
That's not
Me
me.
either.
That's not my life. That's not what I do.
That's not what I do. Like, you know, I believe in this. I don't share my life because the more pain points you can give people, the more advantage they have. So when people know who your kids are and where you're moving and what car you're driving and this and that gives them more pain points to be able to get at you.
Yeah.
It's not, social media is social, but it's not my life. I don't want my kids and all the stuff that I'm involved in and stuff in my life. Because again, I'm a personal person. I'm a public figure, but the core of my life, I don't want that in the media. Because, and here's the thing, and I want to add one thing to that. Because when you put your life in the public eye, whatever your win, you gotta take those wins, but you also gotta eat those losses. So in 2007, I had a show with my ex-wife named Shonda. It was called Man and Wife. It was on MTV. I was actually the first person to do quote unquote reality TV on MTV. It didn't really exist. They followed me around, did my life, and then I had a sex and relationship show. When everybody knew I was married, this and this, when the show was over and I got divorced, those same people asking, well, what happened? Oh, I like to do it. Because if you take your wins publicly, you got to take your L's publicly too. And at that point, I learned, keep your business out the way, because when you win, of course, you're not going to see the win, but when you lose, you're not going to see the L either.
So for somebody who's 25, 35, 45, when they want to make it as a creative, they want to make it as an artist, what are 3 pieces of advice that you'd give to that person right now?
Be focused, which is cutting out all the distractions. Because if you want to get somewhere, you have to cut out the distractions. And that starts with me. Like, I watch a bunch of foolery on YouTube and Instagram and stuff. And I've been working on cutting that down. Also, you have to, whatever you ingest, it has to be worth something. So I watch you. I watch, Investing Simplified and this person and that. I watch things that are going to help me here, or robust discussion. So what you put in your head is important. Do I watch foolery like everybody else? Of course, but I'm trying to cut the foolery down. So number 1, you got to be focused. Number 2, you got to work every day. So if you don't work every day, how can you expect the results for the work you didn't do? Where are you expecting the results for the work you didn't do?
Yeah.
What game is that?
Yeah.
And I would say, and this comes from, this comes from somebody I really respect, be consistent. And I'm working on being consistent, like with social media and stuff. I don't post a lot of stuff on my Instagram all the time. I'm starting to get people to do it for me and work on that. But I'm trying to be consistent with that 1 remix a week. Because if people can depend on you for something, eventually they're going to come to love it. So there is, as far as consistency is concerned, there is a guy from my neighborhood who was he's a big rapper. His name is Jim Jones from Dipset. And I used what I call the Jim Jones method. And that's this. When Jim Jones first came out, because he's from my neighborhood, he's from Cameron, Dipset, I don't know if you know that, but they were huge back in the 2000s, right? First, Jimmy was security. So he was the enforcer of the crew. Anybody who messed with Dipset, he was handling all that, right? He was Cam right-hand man, right? Then he decided to rap. So now when he's rapping, the response is, why we gotta hear this? Jim Jones, come on, man, right? But he kept working. Yeah. Then it became, okay, Jim Jones come out, oh yeah. Then it became, again, he's working on his craft. He's consistent. Now it's, yeah, that Jim Jones. Then he got to the point where fire. Now we dealing with straight fire now. The Jim Jones project is coming. Yo, that's fire. Yo, he had that record on there. He had that record on there. He had that record on there. But that came from consistent work. So all I do is I try to employ the Jim Jones method. I keep working, and as I work, I get better. And I also get people, when you're consistent, people will rock with you because they love consistency.
Wow.
So that's what I would say.
Oh man, there were so many nuggets in here. It's funny is I put out this whole list of questions I wanted to go through. We didn't even go over this.
Here's what we do. Keep those questions. When I come back, we'll do it because, as you know, one of my financial guys is here. You're here, and I live in Ohio, so we, ain't nothing but a drive, but me to go to Avis and get a car. We'll do it again. I think people need to hear these conversations because we don't have a lot of this. Yeah. All we have is a bunch of people that are showing you something, but they're not giving you the other side.
Right.
So you see the jewelry, you see this, you see that, but you don't see the other side. You don't see the work being done. You don't hear it from anybody. You only get half of the story. So for me, when I'm getting ready to do an education product, when I do my education product, I'm gonna be like, yo, you do this to get here. But what do you do when you get here? How you gonna make this money last for the rest of your life?
Right.
How you gonna make that?
And even beyond your life, pay for your kids, pay for your grandkids, and you build a generational wealth.
Now we getting into trusts and stuff like that. I just got a trust made. They're in the middle of writing it now. What are you doing to move it forward? Because really the real deal is what you doing and what I'm doing. We're gonna enjoy it a little bit right now, God willing. But the game is for the rest of the people that are behind us not to have to suffer. However, in my personal trust, I'm making rules. And I'm not giving people, when I pass away, God forbid, in 30 years, 35 years, I'm not giving them a check. You have to do certain things, and there's going to be a disbursement based upon what the stocks are doing, what the investments are doing. You're not getting a check. You're getting a disbursement and an opportunity to borrow money from the family bank that you have to come with a plan and somebody to help you execute it so that you can do X, Y, and Z, and to give a piece of that money back from that loan back to the trust so that it can continue to fund others.
I love that, man. And I want to do more of this.
We're going to listen, I love this. I love you. So let's figure out a way where we come maybe once a quarter and we sit and talk, because those are still questions that have to be answered.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you, Scoop. I learned a lot. I know the viewers learned a lot. If there are future questions that you want to hear from Scoop, let me know down in the comments. What else you want to hear from next time you come down? Where else can people learn about you and see what you're doing?
All you got to do is go on Instagram, at Fat Man Scoop on Instagram, at Fat Man Scoop on YouTube, at Fat Man Scoop on TikTok. And you, again, because I read the comments, so you can leave the comments below. And I read the comments of everything all the time because I like to be active. So, again, if you have questions, please send it to them. And the next time I come, I would love to answer questions, because to end this and to put a bow and tie on it, I believe it's each one teach one. What I know now, it's my responsibility to pass on to others. And that's where I'll get the good karma and I'll get the blessings.
Well, I appreciate that. You heard it from Scoop. Leave a comment below. Can you give us a little rap before we leave?
What do you want?
Tell us to get financially educated.
It's very simple, people. Your life starts when you do the things that you need to do to make your life start. Period. You have to work. You have to put in time. You have to study. These are all the hard things that need to be done. But here's the thing. If I can do it and be busy and do what I'm doing, then you can do it too. Fat Man Scoop, Minority Mindset. Let's go.
My man. Thank you.